Warpugs. So, here's a question that begs an answer. How much has the Imperium lost since the Horus Heresy? Now, it was a pleasure working with the PancreasNoWorks on the last video I did for 5-ish Minute Lore, which is on the Avatar of Cain. Links will be in the description down below for the lore channel. Just go check that out. It's the latest video I uploaded. It was a lot of fun working with him on that. But, as far as this video goes, as far as this question goes, the answer is a hell ton. The sheer amount of just hope and the entire mind frame of the Imperium has completely shifted from before to now. While humanity is more or less unified, it is unified in a way that no one really intended. Like, no one really intended it for it to be this way. It's lost security. It's lost its sense of self. Originally, it had this, not a sense of invulnerability, but this sense of destiny that it has since lost and gradually has vanished entirely. And where once there was hope, there is nothing. There is nothing but the constant grind of endless war after war. But let's hear what PancreasNoWork has to say. This is a good question, and it deserves a good answer. Let's go.
The major themes of Warhammer 40k is the idea that everyone in the setting is in some way decayed from what they used to be.
True.
That they're lesser, a shadow of what they once were. The Eldar used to rule the galaxy. Now they're reduced to craft worlds scattered across it, a giant cancerous slum filled with the absolute worst people ever, and a bunch of clowns. The orcs used to all be the size of school buses and able to smash Necrons like they're made of plywood. Now they're Cockney football morons.
Pretty
the
much.
Necrons themselves, for that matter, used to have souls. Now they have none, and most of them don't even have a personality. If that doesn't count as lesser, then I don't know what does. The Tau and Tyranids didn't really lose anything, so they break the mold a bit, but the Tau, by the standards of the setting, aren't old enough to have lost anything, and the Tyranids are the Tyranids. They don't really have anything to lose. And this, of course, holds true for the Imperium.
Yes,
they
it
used to be
does.
a galaxy-conquering empire, now they're falling apart at the seams. Before that, humanity used to be in the Dark Age of technology, where they were in a similar situation to the Eldar, just not quite as powerful.
True.
Work might as well have been a hobby, they had complete mastery over their technology, and then everything went wrong. But that being said, let's go forward a bit. The Horus Heresy specifically. What did the Imperium actually lose from that time to the modern timeline of 40k? Because from what I was looking at, they didn't really lose that much compared to everyone else. No, that's not to say they lost nothing. Things certainly got worse in the following time. But I just thought it'd be a fun little video to make while I'm working on bigger stuff. Let's see what the Imperium actually lost from the Horus Heresy and on. Some of it was big, some of it was little, and some of the stuff they lost wasn't actually that big of a deal. And just to clarify, this video isn't specifically about what the Horus Heresy made humanity lose. It's about what the Imperium specifically has lost going forward from that point on. It'll also be pretty general in scope, just as a heads up.
So it looks like he's talking about more physical and material assets that the Imperium had that has lost. My main thought process about this is more of the stance of the Imperium itself, its view of itself, things of that nature.
First off, let's start with the big one, Big E. They used to have the Emperor of Mankind leading the charge, then he was a bit more secretive, but he was still doing stuff and hanging around. Now he's stuck being a galactic light bulb. Obviously,
True.
the Imperium can't really count on him doing things anymore besides being a light bulb. I feel pretty confident in it being a valid statement to say that the Emperor has been lost. Being the galaxy's most divine car battery doesn't count as sticking around. But allow me to present to you what can be easily construed as the highest form of heresy. And I'm not making a way overused joke with that. Straight up, this is just heretical stuff I'm gonna throw at you. I don't think the Emperor being confined to his chair is a bad thing. Now, there's plenty of reasons for this. I could give you lore-based reasons, like how he was a shit dad to his demigod generals, how his plan to keep humanity safe was to hide in a system of magical tunnels that were falling apart and filled with beings that view humanity with contempt, and how he apparently had a physical inability to explain anything to anyone, which as a ruler is a bit of a negative quality. But those are all reasons others have gotten into before.
True. Very true.
Or I've gotten into before, and I probably will get into again in the future. No, I'm going to explain why it's a good thing he's gone from the point of view of someone who plays a lot of strategy games.
I never really realized how Magnus in this picture is looking at Angron. I never really saw it before now, but there's just the general look of absolute disdain on his face. I mean, yeah.
How I personally play strategy games is that I am a slow-moving, slow-to-expand turtle of an empire. I don't like risky wars, I don't like throwing resources into rapid expansion unless it's expansion I know I can do without threat, and I prefer to generalize. Maybe I won't have the best thing for a given situation, but I'll hopefully have enough good enough things to handle the problem.
Okay.
I don't want to sink a massive amount of my resources into one mega project unless it's something that can be done gradually over time. Like early game Stellaris. I'll gun my way as far across the galaxy as I can, but I'm also not going to be starting any wars until I'm a good 40 years into the game minimum. With that in mind, the way the Emperor ran the Imperium is, funnily enough, anathema to me. He expanded the Imperium to be hundreds of thousands of planets in just a few hundred years. His idea of getting administrators and generals was to use immortal demigod heroes with vastly different personalities and levels of capability, and then he just vanished once he decided he'd gone far enough. He left his empire to run itself without setting what I would consider a proper stable groundwork to ensure it would run smoothly without him being around to beat it into submission. Oh, and what did he leave to go do? Why, a single resource-intensive mega project to which the backup plan of was, let's hope we don't need a backup plan, which was then ruined because he trusted his son, who was obsessed with magic, to not do any magic. The way the Emperor ran the Imperium is a way I physically cannot bring myself to do running my own empires and strategy games.
Oh, God, this is such a thing, too. He's talking about Stellaris, and I play Stellaris so much just... My way of playing strategy games is to gain as much territory as possible, fortify it, and then launch opportunistic attacks. That's how I do things. And if I overwhelm you in strength, God help you.
Be they grand strategy or smaller scale RTS games. And before you say you're just an idiot who's doing it wrong, let me ask you something, buddy. You ever run an intergalactic empire?
No.
Do you have the expertise to tell me that I'm wrong in viewing the Emperor's way of handling his empire as stupid? That's what I thought. And hell, there's even a few benefits to him being lost to the Imperium. The Astronomicon is probably more easily powered by him being tied to the damn thing, so that's a plus. Humanity also gained a unifying religion to keep it going, and in fact the Imperial cult has been stated to be pretty much the only reason the Imperium is even remotely unified. Gilliman called it a necessary evil for that very reason. Shout out to him not being immune to that particular brand of stupid juice, by the way. Real shame the only Primarch who didn't subscribe to the edgy atheist school of thought instead subscribes to the edgy Satanist school of thought instead. Moving on, the Imperium's also lost the Primarchs. They're the next step down from the Emperor. Figured it makes sense to talk about them next. Now, the Primarchs are a bit trickier than Big E, and no way helped by the fact that two of them have come back, and I like a couple of them. But let's just go with the immediate aftermath of the Heresy to start with. After about 1,000-ish years from the Horus Heresy ending, all the Primarchs were gone. Between those who died and the 9 traitors, the Horus Heresy got all but 6 of them removed from the Imperium, and then those 6 proceeded to either run away or get killed. Or semi-killed in one of those cases. Now, this is an interesting one because on the one hand, several of the Primarchs lost were the sort of people that would have absolutely helped the Imperium if they stuck around, and their absence most certainly hurt it. Gilliman especially springs to mind, being one of the few, if not the only Primarch who was trying to do any sort of forward planning, and just generally being the expert and administrator that he is. Rogel Dorn could have ensured Cadia wouldn't have fallen until we were at Warhammer 80k if he was still around, and Sanguinius probably could have been a decent Emperor 2.0. Even some of the traitor Primarchs would have been helpful had they not turned into the traitor Primarchs. Vulgrim was a pretty cool dude before that whole cocksword thing. He probably could have helped, but also consider that
yeah, he would have been very, very effective, I think.
Plenty of the Primarchs weren't great for the Imperium before they left. Lorgar might have been diplomatic as a Primarch, but regardless of whether or not you approve of his approach to bringing worlds into compliance, he was going directly against the wishes of the Imperium's leader.
Yeah.
That sort of things can only cause problems at some point down the line, even if said problems didn't turn into a demonic revolution. Purely from the standpoint of keeping the Imperium unified and everyone on the same page, I think it's a good thing he's gone. Leman Russ at best is helpful when you need someone disposed of, but the Space Wolves, to be blunt, are not the kind of people you want around in a peacetime situation.
No.
And if the Space Wolves are bad for peacetime, the World Eaters are a bad sandwich with extra bad sauce on top. What the fuck is this analogy?
I don't even want to think about how bad the actual World Eaters are from a standpoint of actually, you can't even rely on them in doing the one thing well, I hate to use the phrase excel at, but you can't even rely on them to do that effectively because they're too busy running around doing stupid stuff and almost getting themselves killed.
They didn't do peace. At a certain point, they probably didn't understand what peace meant, beyond being what you chop your enemies into. Angron becoming a traitor was probably better for the Imperium than not. He was a brutal monster at the best of times, and if the Imperium tried to get rid of him, killing off one of your demigod generals is a bad look. Even if it was done in secret, that's the kind of thing that leads to conspiracy theories on the Emperor killing off his children. But him turning traitor? Well, now you don't have to justify getting rid of the thousands of murder machines you're stuck with. And while him becoming a demon Primarch isn't great for the Imperium, he's also largely been in the warp ever since the Heresy ended. Whenever he showed up back in real space was a problem for sure, but he did it so rarely that for the longest time he almost wasn't worth worrying about.
True.
That sort of thing is similar to a lot of the demon Primarchs. So while I do think the loss of the Primarchs is honestly worse than the loss of the Emperor, I think in a lot of ways it's not as bad as it could have been and people think it is. You cannot tell me with a straight face that the Imperium would be better off if Conrad Curze stuck around.
Yeah, I don't think anybody could really do that. I don't think anybody... No.
He made flesh puppets of his dad, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want him as a crossing guard, let alone a being in charge with a 20th of a galaxy-spanning military.
If you really want a disturbing read, the Conrad Curze Primarch book is the book for you, and I highly recommend it just because of the first, 20 minutes of Conrad Curze being in this book genuinely makes you realize why the aliens don't talk to us.
Up next are technological losses, and this is going to be a lot more general. Of course, the Imperium has lost a lot of stuff from the Horus Heresy onward. Military equipment, civilian infrastructure stuff, if you can name it, the Imperium lost some form of it. This section is the one I think included some of the most catastrophic losses of the Imperium, although with that being said, in a lot of ways, I don't think it's as bad as you might think. Let me explain by talking about Space Marines. Terminator armor is already rare, and a lot of the varieties were either just straight up forgotten about or are so rare and hard to make nowadays that you just don't see them for that reason alone.
Right.
Same for the different patterns of Dreadnought. The Custodies can still make most of the stuff, sure, but the average Space Marine chapter gets the Boxknot or the new Primaris.
Hail to the Boxknot. Rest in peace, you glorious bastard.
Ones. Another example is Volkite weapons. To simplify these things, they were basically weaponized furnaces. Not quite the same as a melt-a-gun, but similar enough to make the comparison. After the Horus Heresy and half the Mechanicum going with the traitors, almost no one has these things anymore. Compare this to the Horus Heresy times, where every single legion had reliable access to them, as well as a pretty respectable amount of the normal human military. Volkite tech was so common back then that what the Mechanicus now undoubtedly considers to be sacred tech to never be given to anyone else was something they just tossed at whoever asked for it. Titans, plasma guns, different kinds of vehicle, they've lost plenty of stuff since the Horus Heresy ruined everything.
Yep.
At the same time though, compare that to the losses humanity suffered after the Dark Age of technology had ended. Diseases could be cured by literal panaceas. Anything that was wrong with you just cured. It's gone now. Well, much like those diseases used to be, now the panacea is just gone now.
True.
The last one humanity had is now in a Dark Eldar treasury somewhere because they thought it'd be funny to steal it. Terminator armor, the highest level of armor an Astartes can wear, was construction equipment. All the Imperium really did was add the black carapace to it so Astartes could wear it effectively and bolt a couple of sensors onto it just to make it a little bit more combat effective. And that's not even getting...
That is actually the most true statement you could possibly have. It was construction/mining equipment. Hell, the Knights were there to basically combat large creatures and be lumberjacks.
Into things like the Arc Mechanicus black hole gun that could cause you to time travel back into yourself and explode, or the machines that could straight up erase matter from the universe. Compared to that, the losses from the Heresy onward weren't that bad. Let's put it this way. Imagine if the United States lost the ability to make F-35s. I don't mean they lost it like the one they just fucking lost in the middle of nowhere, although I can almost guarantee you that thing is going to make an appearance on a War Thunder forum sooner or later. The government probably had to fight off War Thunder fans like it was Call of Duty Zombies to get the damn thing back. What I mean is to completely erase the ability of the United States to produce the F-35 fighter jet going forward. That would be bad, and
True.
that's what I view the losses of the Horus Heresy onward to be like for the Imperium. But there's still plenty of other fighters to use, just like the Imperium still has plenty of other weapons available to them. Now, using that analogy, imagine if the United States lost the ability to make jet aircraft. Not because of resource shortages, but because the knowledge of how to make anything with a jet on it is just gone. That's how I view the Dark Age of technology losses compared to what was lost between the Heresy and modern 40k.
I'd almost rate it even higher than that. I would almost say that from Dark Age of technology to the modern Imperium, I'd say so much has been lost in terms of knowledge that they're just never going to recover, that it would be more... It would be like if you took our modern technology and sent us back to, say, the 1800s.
Also, please, for the love of God, don't yell at me because the F-22 is actually better than the F-35, or vice versa, and I'm an idiot either way. I know everything I know about those planes because of either Laserpig or habitual line crosser. I'm not a military or aircraft expert, I just like people talking about the funny flying death machines.
Yes.
But to get back on track, the
And I prefer Laserpig.
losses of technology after the Horus Heresy, bad. But not as bad as you might think.
True.
It's the difference between the upper end of the tech tree being lost versus half the entire tree being eaten by termites. Next up, their records. The Imperium has lost most of the things it's kept records of. I mean, the Tau as a faction only exist because the Imperium lost the record of them existing when they were still bound to their home planet as a medieval era civilization. Then a warp storm happens, Age of Apostasy happens, and then everyone forgets about the Xenos race that was supposed to be purged until they're suddenly knocking on your door like Jehovah's Witnesses with railguns. And when I say lost, sometimes I don't even mean that the Imperium's record storage was wiped out like with a lot of their other lost stuff. I mean, if the data storage of a given planet gets wiped out by demons, it's kinda hard to blame the Imperium for that, you know? But sometimes they just forget they have something because their bureaucracy is such a shit show that once something is filed away, it is for all intents and purposes gone. For example, take the first Tyrannic War. The Mechanicus fended off a splinter of High Fleet Behemoth by saturating the atmosphere of a planet with Promethium refinery runoff and then lighting it on fire. It was a pretty resounding victory, and while you can't always recreate that sort of thing depending on where they're invading, it's a good trick to have for Forge Worlds facing invasions from the Nids in the future.
True.
Problem is, when the incident was recorded, the Mechanicus just straight up forgot about it after it was stored. It's like when you forget where you put your car keys, except your car keys in this instance are a near guaranteed way to repel a horrific monster invasion. In all honesty, I think this is the worst of all things the Imperium has lost. You know the number of there being 1,000 Space Marine chapters in the Imperium? That's the estimate of the Administratum.
That's an estimate, and it's not an accurate estimate. Oh my god, it's not an accurate estimate. There's no way there's just 1,000 now.
In all honesty, there's dozens, if not hundreds more out there, some of which may even be damn near Legion strength. The lore doesn't make much use out of it because a whole Space Marine Legion suddenly appearing to save Cadia would be the ass-pull to end all ass-pulls, but to be fair, it's an entirely legitimate thing to happen in this setting. Plus, it gives you room to homebrew your own army, which is always nice. But back to the point, the Imperium's records are so shit that they could lose entire groups of people the average person considers to be an angel. And something like a planet isn't exempt from this either. The Imperium having a million worlds is equal part truth and conjecture.
True.
In reality, it probably has a decent chunk more than that, but no one knows they exist because the records of it have either been destroyed, misplaced, or just forgotten about in the first place. These lost records mean the Imperium can't make use of what would otherwise be fantastic additions to itself. If you don't know a planet is there, you can't get taxes from it. I think this is worse than the technological aspect for a variety of reasons. Let's start with the obvious. If you forget a planet exists because your administratum is the epitome of the word Byzantine, then you probably aren't going to supply it well. Or at all, really.
Right.
One day there's a new Chaos Space Marine warband using it as the capital of their little empire, and this could have been easily stopped had someone 5,000 years ago not accidentally filed the planet under the wrong folder in your planet-sized library. Alternatively, important war zones get sent massive amounts of candy and other goods while some random paradise planet in the middle of bumfuck nowhere is suddenly drowning in enough lasguns to choke a hive fleet with. But dig deeper than that. Think about things like the Mechanicus and their obsession with finding ancient ruins, because that's where all the good tech lies. Imagine how many potential dig sites or caches of ancient tech have been lost to time because someone filed it away to be looked into later, and then the information just could never be accessed again going forward. I know it sounds like a joke, and it kind of has been used as such, but I'm not kidding when I say that a pretty good deal of the problems the Imperium faces could probably be solved if it had better record keeping and hadn't lost what it once had.
A good 25% of their problems a good 25% of their problems would be solved by this. Would be completely solved by them just not dicking around and just better, just reform, man. Reform the Administration. Let's go.
Imagine if something like a map of prominent Dark Age of technology shipyards existed. Even if they're all in complete ruins, the information found in the wreckage alone could probably revitalize the Imperium. Surely before the Horus Heresy, something like that would have been one of the Emperor's top priorities, but because the Horus Heresy did a lot more than get a bunch of Space Marines killed, it no longer exists. And remember, the Imperium did used to have things like that. That's how the Lion beat Lehman Russ to finding a civilization of non-compliant humans they were fighting. He just looked at old colonial records and went to the homeworld. I mean, for the love of all that is good in this universe, which is next to nothing, I admit, the calendar is a subject of intense debate. Can you imagine if you walked up to a group of people and asked them the date only to get 3 different responses? One of them says the current year as you know it, one says 1985, and another hits you with an absolute mental flashbang and goes, ah yes, it is currently the year 279 BC. And any one of them could be right. Legitimately, if the Imperium hadn't lost so much in the form of the records it keeps from after the Horus Heresy, if so much wasn't tangled in the end-all be-all of disorganized Google Drive folders, it would have probably defeated half the enemies it faces by now.
Very true.
So what's there to take away here? Honestly, it's that the Imperium has lost plenty of things from when it started, but compared to what the other armies have lost in the lore, I don't think it's that bad. Compared to what humanity as a whole has lost, the Imperium specifically isn't that bad.
No.
In some ways, it's even grown, mostly in literal size, since I remember the intro of a Rogue Trader anthology going, mankind's reach is always growing, for it is the only way to survive.
And population-wise, it has grown. From the beginning of the Horus Heresy onwards, most of the worlds that the Imperium now has were either colonized or conquered during that time. And while there has been constant wars and everything else going on like that, some of these worlds that were colonized during the expansion of the Great Crusade now are hive worlds that have billions upon billions of people. You know, it is the way it is.
Like I said, I don't think some of the things people decry the most are that bad. Half the Primarchs were real shitters, the Emperor was the biggest shitter at the top of the pile, and the technology from the start of the Imperium to nowadays isn't really that much worse than when it began, at least in my humble opinion. The record thing is pretty abysmal though, that one's pretty crippling. In fact, if you're going to take anything away from this video, take that away. Between data corruption over tens of thousands of years, originals and copies being destroyed, and the Imperium going on for so long that its origins are a myth, the worst thing it lost wasn't anything material. It was the knowledge that it had lost anything to begin with. Because if you know what you lost, you can go looking for it or work on a replacement. But 10,000 years of garbage record keeping and destruction of documents mean that not only does the Imperium not know what it once had, it doesn't even know it doesn't know something anymore. Also, that whole the only way to survive is to keep growing thing gave me an idea for a video, but that's for another time. I'd like to try and keep to the schedule I promised in a community post a little while ago. Speaking of, quick update for what's to come, so if you don't give a damn for what I'm tentatively planning, then feel free to either click away or skip to the end video joke, whatever floats your boat. Kane's video is coming along with a decent amount of lines recorded and the script roughly halfway complete. He was going to be released on the day this video was, but I got the brainworm for this one in my head and it wouldn't go away.
There you go.
Halo Hammer Part 4, which is the finale for that little series, is up next after that, tentatively. Look forward to me really having to stretch how I justify the Unisy not getting immediately curb stomped, and spoiler alert, I couldn't even fully commit to that because this is not an even fight at all. And sometime this month, to be determined when, Slaanesh. More on that to come.
No.
And yes, I wrote come exactly how you think I did in the script.
Did.
Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. You are the single competent admin. This end video bit is aimed specifically at a good 50% of the commenters on the last Lore Crimes video.
Okay.
If you don't watch Lore Crimes, then first of all, go watch it. It's me and 3 more gentlemen talking about Warhammer lore. None of them have yet to figure out I'm not joking when I say I'm flying by the seat of my pants, but that's alright. Thank you, Insulin Pump. But no, on topic. Like half a dozen of you talking about how feeding the Tyranids my hard drive would drive them away from the Milky Way. What do you people think I am? That I'm some kind of animal who hides his porn on his computer? I'm not a savage. I don't do that. The man has one piece of VTuber merch, downloads just a couple of high-definition Skyrim sex mods, and suddenly it's like I'm a devout follower of Slaanesh. Just because I want Ayla the Huntress to have a horse cock doesn't mean my hard drive is enough to bring the Tyranids to ruin. It just means they're going to become Mori fans.
Wow, I didn't need to know that last bit. I didn't need to know that last bit. And now that I do, I am very distressed. I'm actually the sad now. This makes me sad. Guys, PancreasNoWork. I need to check out Lore Crimes. I know it's him. I know it's live from the Black Library. Who else is part of that group? Let's see. I don't recognize the other two. Let me actually take a look who comprises Lore Crimes, because I honestly don't know. Let's see. Lore Crimes. Let's see. Boom. Boom.
So
let's see here. The Remembrancer and Deadless from the Dark. Deadless. Oh my god. Okay, so let's see. The Remembrancer, Pancreas, Deadless for the Dark Gods, and the Amber King. Oh my god. Okay, so I thought for some reason Live from the Black Library was on that group, but in any case, guys, I hope you had fun with this one. He went a little bit away from what I was thinking. I was leaning heavily towards more of the practical, emotional makeup of the Imperium, and he hit everything else. Yeah. I can firmly say that the one thing I think the Imperium has lost above everything else, though, has got to be its outlook on the universe. The outlook of the Imperium from, the beginning of the Horus Heresy to the end of it, changed in a 180-degree fashion, and it has never recovered. Guys, if you enjoyed this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Check my links below for links to Warrior Tier, his channel, everything like that. Check out the lore. Oh my god, my brain. Check out my lore channel, Old Man Lore Stories and Theory, and check out the video I just put out with PancreasNoWorks on the Avatar of Cain. I'm gonna jump out of here. I will catch you guys next time. And for the love of God, somebody please tell me how you bend the barrel of a Bradley.